everyone. Okay, I think we can start. Hi everyone. Today is February 19, and this is the Bounded Context Working Group. So we have a few things in the agenda that I've added as I was going through the exercise of categorizing things, but I also see there's some questions. So let's just jump into it. First of all, we can probably review the progress of the spreadsheet. I'm going to share the screen. So I've added to this column count by namespace, since we have this suggested namespace here in the middle. It's still pretty low because we've been focusing a lot on the feature categories, but as we convert the information we have between feature categories and stage into namespace, we should see this ramping up pretty quickly. So I just sorted this for now by count, so we can see the most prevalent namespaces. And so yeah, we will eventually refine this, and we can we can see more in details over time. And probably by next time, I would like maybe to start focusing on some of the particular cases, because I think they are the most interesting one. Like where we already do a pretty good job at namespacing things, this is easy. I think we might need to have more conversations around the most controversial cases, I would say. So yeah, and I've been trying to go as well through some of these myself. So I've been categorizing things like repositories, where things are related to repositories, like where I feel comfortable, otherwise I leave them. But yeah, we should start to go through this exercise of actually moving stuff in here. So this is give us the simulation of what the namespaces actually are going to be. Sometimes it makes sense to just reuse what we have. We don't need to change, for example, packages, the existing one into package registry. Like, we just should keep whatever we have as much as possible. But in some cases where things need to be recollocated, I think we can have a conversation about that. But yeah, let's jump into the agenda. So Tong asked, do we need to worry about app models, subdirectories? And my understanding is that anything in app models is too hard. For me, is important that we start to think about these problems. If things are hard to rename, we need to start to understand like why, and we need to find ways of making this easier wherever it's possible. I know there's some cases like where we use SDI, things are harder to rename, but we don't have to necessarily rename everything right now. It will be more like some cases where we might need to rename a few things because it makes more sense. I think we need to have like a good strategy in place. I think we should make it easier to rename things whenever possible. But yeah, at the same time, we are not going to kind of move files around like all the time. I think we should look into more details. Maybe I'll create some specific discussions about this, like how we can make it easier. What kind of problems do we actually see more that can be a friction renaming things. Because I think ultimately we should try to encourage renaming as much as possible as we discover more about the domain. Well, yeah, we need to, I think, have more thoughts about this. Anyone wants to add any thoughts on this? Or are there any other things that could make it harder that you can think of?
On the renaming thing, I just a little bit concerned that like the same we have to be concerned about the workers
Yes.
mainly because the workers are running and all those things. I even put another note down there. Like it probably will have to be multiple releases work
Yes.
to rename some of those things. So I just think that maybe we should have a good documentation on how to do this process before really starting doing it.
Yes. That's definitely a good point. Okay, next question from Tong was, what do we do with GitLab CI and CI namespaces? Do we try to unify? My answer is yes. I think we should try to unify this, and probably here also a point related to the GitLab namespace. So according to the the proposal, and again, this is all up for grab and for discussion. But the idea would be that we move all the code that is domain specific away from GitLab namespace. For example, anything inside GitLab CI should be namespace under CI. So whether that is in lib or app or app models, app services, it should still have the same namespace. So eventually we should move code outside of GitLab namespace. What can become a bit more, what I'm noticing is that we are extracting gems that use like GitLab Dash, which eventually have the GitLab still namespace. So although we are removing code outside of the monolith into gems, they're still going to be part of the same Ruby object space with the same Ruby namespace, GitLab. So we're still maintaining this, and I'm not sure 100% what we should do with this case. Like one option might be to eventually, still keep GitLab namespace, but make it more for platform stuff. Could be GitLab database, GitLab RSpec, GitLab utils. So things that are not specific to domain code, and that might be a way of distinguishing. Okay, we're talking about infrastructure code or platform code, or we're talking about domain business logic. So one way would be this, so we might not have to rename a lot of things. On the other way around is we could probably create more specific namespaces for infrastructure or platform code. I'm not sure. I think we need to kind of come up with some pros and cons in that. But Cassio, you had
one question I had about this is whether we are kind of afraid of name clashes of, for example, some other gems are actually taking some upcoming namespace we chosen. So for example, I see some examples like platform and CI, for example. Okay, CI is very unlikely. There's a gem which already uses the namespace CI, but there might be in the future some terms which are already taken by external gems, right? What should we do about this? So, or to phrase this differently, one benefit of having GitLab in front of it, although it's very tedious to write, is that we are kind of sidestepping all the problems, right, related to namespaces.
Sure, yes. We will still be we'll still have the same problem with with domain code though, right? I don't know if we have like if we have a gem that has like issues namespace, would that conflict with code that we have in GitLab outside of the GitLab namespace? Um, right. So I think this problem might still be there. Yeah. So I mean, one thing I can can keep, but it just that will definitely require like changes everywhere. Is if we had like a GitLab as the top level namespace for everything for the entire Rails app, then we know everything. Everything will be namespace and the GitLab. You can have other gems. They had to start with GitLab something as well to have like kind of a conflict, but you can remove that. But like we do have too many constants been defined, so this is probably like a no-go. But yeah, I think Hanami does that, where all your classes are namespaced under your app by default. So you have already a kind of no name clashing.
Yes, that's true. Hanami is doing this. The only gem which is using GitLab right now is the GitLab gem itself, but this is like a client-side gem. So I think we are. So as of now, we could not even use the GitLab gem in the current Rails application because of some potential namespace problems. But as far as I understand, like this is the only gem where name clashes can occur right now.
Okay. Kasia, you had some comments earlier.
Yeah, but it's again about the documentation thing. Like, I think we should have very well-defined steps to rename stuff. And just, I don't know if everyone remembers that, but I remember that we used to have in our documentation that when we create things under the lib folder, we should put inside GitLab if it is something only for GitLab. So that's why I think we have so many stuff with the GitLab namespace right now. It's because we used to have this guidance in our documentation actually. And now we want to do the opposite of that. So it's just historical reasons that we have that.
Okay. So yeah, definitely I can see like even myself as when I joined GitLab, I start to associate GitLab namespace for lib stuff and anything else for the app folder. So if something started with GitLab, I knew I was going to look into the lib folder. But I think this makes sense if we're talking about infrastructure code. But if I'm looking at domain code, business logic, I think it will be good to have, if if it's if it's namespace with GitLab, we know it's nothing to do with the business logic. So and that might be a good way of separating things, even if we keep the GitLab namespace. But I think we make it the distinction, like domain code should go under the same namespace as what you have in app. But then if you have something related to utils or kind of platform code, it can go under under GitLab.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that having the shared things and platform things under the GitLab namespace, it's better than having just like a shared namespace or something like that, or no namespace for that. And I think that as far as I understand as well, once we start using PackWork, it will be more clear that those things should be under that same namespace, since they will be folded together and everything together. They won't be apart like they are today, where we have a lot of code for pages, for instance, on lib and also on the app folder. And on the lib, they have the GitLab namespace. On the app folder, they don't have the GitLab namespace. It's a little bit spreaded. Once we start using PackWork and everything gets together, I think the namespacing without the GitLab will make a lot of sense.
Yeah, because ideally we should have lib code and whatever services under the same directory and namespace. Yeah. Cool. So I had other questions here for us to think about. So what should we do with all the app concerns that we have? So when we look at it, it's like a big junk drawer of modules. The problem is there's some kind of cleanup we could do. Like I can see like over time maybe we were reusing some of those, so it made sense to split them to kind of extract the module. Maybe I saw a couple of cases where actually it's used in one place only, but these are kind of minor things. I think the majority will be like how should we treat this kind of cross-cutting concerns? Should be something that we would consider more like a platform code, like concerns about definitely there's a few things kind of database specific, like each batch that we could kind of extract into like a database specific namespace that can actually provide this database namespace can provide also concerns for models. But yeah, there's like a lot of shared concerns there that it's hard to see through what these things are. Actually, you want to verbalize your point?
Yeah, there is this old issue from Remy about replacing concerns with classes, service objects, or something like that. It's not exactly the same problem, but maybe we should avoid using concerns, at least for global features. Within the same namespace, the same feature category, I think it's okay. But for global things, concerns are very hard to maintain and very hard to find where the code is coming from. So maybe we should take the opportunity to also act on that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I think it would be interesting to see, also like how many of these shared concerns are really shared, like across similar functionalities. I don't know, like maybe adding a label maybe is shared between issue and merge request. But how many of these concerns are actually things we are forcing to reuse, or where maybe a little duplication wouldn't hurt in certain scenarios. But yeah, we have to think exactly what is in there in terms of patterns, what problems does it solve. We have so many things from helping to presenting better the model to authentication stuff like encryption to feature flag things. Like so, I think a lot of these things might be useful to be extracted into some kind of platform namespace where we say, okay, this is more not the Rails framework, but like the GitLab framework, as we want to consider that. If you need, this is like the toolbox for GitLab framework, and it's a lot of things will be in here. Maybe it will be still shared, but at least it's kind of we are limiting the amount of stuff we share, and it's very clearly defined. Maybe this could be, but we can. This is all good. I think conversation. We can create issues and have discussion separately, or revive some of these existing issues and have a conversation those.
I think to me it's not a blocker to actually extract like a domain and still use the existing concerns, because this makes it very visible, like this is still an external dependency, right? Kind of to the external concern. And I think we could easily create like a dependency graph where we list all concerns and their use within the GitLab application. So like kind of a directed graph thingy, right? So you can I think at some point you will be seeing like bubbles accumulate kind of. So you mentioned authentication. It's very likely that we will be seeing like the dependencies of a certain concern be of the same domain, right, or similar domain at least. Or there might be authentications exactly the other opposite topic, like it's the cross-cutting concern, right? So we might be seeing like two kinds of things, like where domains are kind of grouping around some concerns, or they are truly cross-cutting, like you mentioned authentication.
Yes.
So I could create like a mermaid chart to show the dependencies of concerns, but I don't think it's a blocker for us to go forward. We want to iterate anyway, so it's, as you mentioned, it would be good to make like the external dependencies very visible, and I think we can do it with Packwerk, right? So you can
you could do it like if you imagine like all these platform related concerns or truly cross-cutting concerns are under, it's called a platform namespace. And so in a model you might have maybe 10 different includes of concerns from the platform, but then you might have also a few internal ones, as you were saying, some internal concerns you might reuse across some model within the same domain. And it will be very clear distinctions. Okay, this concern, this domain, has dependencies on the platform because of a bunch of cross-cutting concerns, but also has some kind of internal dependencies as well. So this will be very, very clear. I think like if we draw like a list dependency graph right now, it will be just crazy to see through because the amount of stuff. But like if we would namespace things under like let's say a few namespaces like platform or like database and things like that, it will be a lot easier to then see the dependency graph if we only look at top level namespaces. It will be a lot easier to have like a bigger picture at the architectural level. Because in that case, we don't really care about each specific constant. We care about the top level namespace. And we might see, okay, all domains, depend on platform, for example, because there's some kind of shared cross-cutting concept. And that will be very clear, very visible, and it will be very simple to see if we only look at top level namespaces. This is also why this top level namespace exercise has been interesting.
So, but we are still kind of planning to use concern, but like kind of move the concerns around to different namespaces, right? Because I really like the idea of replacing concerns with composition and yeah, classes.
Yes.
I'm not sure we should be doing this both, or like the first one, like getting rid of concerns first and then namespacing them, the remaining one, or whatever, or vice versa, right? So it doesn't really matter. But...
Yeah, I agree. It's not a blocker. I think we can still make progress, and we know that we have the problem of concerns, and eventually we're gonna try to untangle that. Yeah. Worst case, if we go eventually have like some Rubocop cop for ensuring we are using the correct namespace, we know that there will be a plenty of to-dos for all these concerns, and it's something we are going to go and sort it out over time. But I think it would be good to, then at some point start to think about a strategy going forward. So we know, okay, we're gonna stop creating concerns in this directory, and for example, we are going to use this namespace or whatever, and eventually slowly migrate stuff around.
Yeah, speaking of migration, it was mentioned before that like renaming workers is hard and like requires steps. So I think it's similar to events, to event store, right? I wonder if we could use like yeah, I'd call it namespace aliasing, where you basically create a new namespace, move all the code to the new namespace, but alias the new namespace to the old existing one. I'm not sure if we've tried that before.
I tried something similar before. I can't
Does-
remember which case was it.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Dumb question.
Yeah,
Well, technically it should, but like there might be some details.
No, I think it worked at that time. We didn't see any problems. It was more like it wasn't about moving the entire namespace, but it was about renaming classes. So we did we moved the code to the new class, and we inherited we kept the old class in everything from the new class, something like that, I think it was. Yeah, I think things still worked. Whatever was remapped with the old class was working, and it was a while ago, but like I think that was kind of roughly what we did. So it could be that there's like a way to do this. So we keep classes, for entire major release, the old legacy classes, but actually we are moving all the development into the new classes. And we just keep those as a placeholder.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds like a great strategy to rename a lot of things that we even could start renaming, even the removal of the GitLab namespace thing and all that.
Yeah, we could probably here, perfect. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, we can take this, I think, create an issue and documentation MR for this. Because ultimately, regardless, I think, of the monolith, how far we go with the modular monolith, it will be good to make it as simple as possible to change classes, rename stuff. I'm realizing we are at time, so I'm going to leave this. We can have this conversation async, or I can move them to the Slack channel, and yeah, I'll call it a time. And for the next time, yeah. So we have a bunch of action items that we can take on by creating merge requests for clarifying documentations. I'll summarize those, and if we can continue doing the exercise with this, so yeah, trying to reuse as much as possible the namespaces we already have, but whatever makes sense, let's try to come up with the whatever namespace makes sense. So at least we know here what will be our bounded context that we eventually want to kind of enforce. We might need to have a look more specifically about some scenarios that are hard to decide. I had a point here in the agenda about projects and groups and other kind of more complex concerns to split. But you can have a conversation. We can share our thoughts and refine that over time. Cool. Is there anything else you want to bring up? Okay, that's good. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.